You've heard of that old saying that patience is a virtue, right? Clearly, some folks take it very seriously. We open on two sets of legs, yes, you heard me right, walking down the street, headed for the Territorial Enterprise. Inside, Joe is hanging out with one of the employees working on a story for Ben's future gubernatorial run. Perfect timing, because the men inquire about Ben, as word has reached all the way to New Orleans about his political ambition. Seems like only yesterday the Cartwrights weren't even allowed to vote for the mayor. Now Ben's running for governor of a place that isn't even a state yet. Inspector Charles LeDuc and his personal bodyguard Cole start making veiled remarks about Ben that Joe takes issue with. I found it funny that they mentioned first that they're from New Orleans and Joe didn't even look up. We've heard before how Joe has always wanted to visit the place that his mother was from and hasn't yet, to our knowledge. He sure does take an interest, though, when LeDuc says his father has no future. The little man who works for the Enterprise is a talkative feller and spills his guts about everything with the sweetest little smile on his face. Ben and Adam are in Silver City, so Joe's helping out on a biography of sorts to put in the paper. That is until LeDuc knocks him out and then commits full-on property damage by destroying the type before it goes to print. At the party in Silver City, Governor Cartwright, I just wanted to say it one time, and first son Adam Cartwright schmooze it up with their dates at a party thrown in his honor. Okay, forgive me a small millennial tangent for just a second. When I was a little kid, my grandmother gave me a little VHS tape series of grim fairy tales. One of these was Cinderella. I went and found it here on YouTube while working on this script because there was a scene from it that I couldn't get out of my head while working on this. Ben's date tells him how graceful he is on the dance floor. Now, in this cartoon, one of Cinderella's stepsisters, in that version called Fatima, is dancing with the prince, and she tells him what a wonderful dancer he is. Their voices are so similar, it's kind of eerie. Luckily for Ben, though, Alice doesn't dance on Ben's feet. That we know of. It ultimately doesn't lead anywhere, though, because we never see Alice or Adam St. Louise again. Ben makes a short speech, and the group of listeners clap after every sentence. I get that they love him. I do too. I'd have voted for him in a heartbeat. But after every single sentence, how do you know his ideas are any good? Back at home, Joe wakes up from his unscheduled nap in the newspaper office and heads straight for the hotel, and he quickly finds out where the two men are staying. Cole isn't there, so Inspector LeDuc is alone. This happens more than once, so Cole clearly isn't that great at guarding his boss's body. He says he's been waiting 20 years to confront Ben. Joe says he doesn't believe him, but at this point he hasn't even said what Ben is accused of yet. It isn't until Joe is at the door ready to leave that LeDuc volunteers the information that the charge is murder. Joe stops in front of the door after he's on the other side of it and stares back. It's subtle, but I love how they convey the tiny twinge of doubt. Joe heads home. So LeDuc claims that he was a special friend with Marie. They already did this with Frederick Kyle. I did a video exactly a year ago on that episode. It sounds like the timing is about the same too. This Simon LaRoche that Ben is accused of killing was good friends with her too. They have Marie primed for a past long before we ever meet her in flashback form. Speaking of Simon, at the ranch, Hoss welcomes Ben and Adam home and hints around that he doesn't want to bother Ben with this incident until he's had a chance to unwind, but Joe refuses to wait. Adam looks back at Joe on the way in the house like he can tell something's up. Joe tells Ben about the man who was waiting to see him. Ben's face changes instantly. It's hard to get a beat on how much of this Hoss and Adam actually know. Ben explains to Joe that Marie was judged because she came from a certain part of New Orleans that sailors referred to as the Flats. Adam references it way back in the pilot episode where he calls Marie Joe's French quarter mother. I know, I'm sorry for reminding you of that scene, but I have to do my due diligence. Ben gives Joe little more information other than that this man Ben killed was blackmailing Marie, and she was paying him behind Ben's back for a while. He says that it was in the interest of protecting mainly Hoss and Adam, who she treated as her own. The camera then pans to Adam. Purnell does this thing when he's playing Adam is upset when his jaw moves slightly. He does this when Ben tells Joe that Marie treated them like her own. I'm far from the only person to notice this. Others have commented about it, including Melissa from the Yeehaw Bonanza podcast. Go and watch the episode along with her on her video. It's fantastic. Being the scholar of Adam Cartwright that I am, I do wonder what this look was supposed to convey. Was he sad thinking about her? What does Adam know about her past? In Julia Bulette's story, Joe says that he's heard Ben and Adam talk about Marie's past before. But here, it's hard to tell what Adam knows. One second he tells Ben that he can still keep the secret like he's trying to protect Joe too. Then, after Ben tells Joe, he remarks on how long it's been like he didn't already know about it. Hoss not knowing, I understand. He was 5. Adam definitely knew something. Once again, I'm left wishing we'd had at least one conversation over the last 6 years where Joe and Adam talk about Marie. Just one. When Ben goes to see the good inspector, there's a potions and elixirs store in the background. I noticed that for the first time during my watch for this podcast. When Leduc complains about not having been able to acquire things like a wife and family because of working too much, Ben notes that most people admire an honest lawman, and we're here for the shade. No one throws it like Ben Cartwright. When Leduc mentions his disability, Ben knows nothing about it. It isn't until Leduc tells him that he was shot by his own gun while chasing Ben down that we find out Ben never even looked back. He had been unarmed and Leduc was hunting him down. Now, was this before or after he was acquitted for Simon's death? Why was this so personal for Leduc before he got shot? Who was that Louise girl Adam was holding hands with at the party? Let's string the case together from what we have so far. This Simon LaRoche was blackmailing Marie for something in her past, and she paid him off until Ben found out. Ben confronts Simon. Simon pulls a knife, and Ben kills him, yet isn't armed when Leduc, not yet an inspector, is put on the case and chases after him. Leduc falls and is shot by his own gun. He now walks with a painful limp and blames Ben with every step for 20 years. There's allegedly still a warrant for Ben's arrest in New Orleans, but Leduc has to wait until he's promoted to make good on it. Then he doesn't know where Ben is until he reads about his jump into Nevada politics, and Nevada isn't even a state yet? Do I have all this right? Geez, I feel like I'm doing a story like Dennis was. After this meeting with Leduc, before any other men even thought of running against him for governor of the not-a-state, Ben quickly tells Dennis to print a story formally withdrawing Ben from the race. Of course, Charles is very happy to read this. Adam, on the other hand, is as confused as me. He says he doesn't want to leave his friends hanging, but there was plenty of time to get this worked out before worrying about withdrawing from the race. I don't get it. After hearing even those small details which he now has about his mother, Joe storms off and Ben just lets him go. I feel like I would have kept him from leaving when he was in a mood like that. I know Ben wants to give his sons freedom, but you know Joe, dude. He promised not to hurt Leduc, but that doesn't mean Leduc won't use his emotional state against him. So Joe gets his emotional state used against him when he heads back to the hotel. The thing Ben didn't want him to do, he does. Why do I get the vibe that Adam and Hoss were treated a lot more strictly when they were Joe's age? Charles and Cole are in the saloon, and the girl there is trying to get close to Leduc. When she learns his name is Charles, she calls him Charlie. This annoys me to no end, and I really can't say why other than that she wasn't told his name was Charlie. His name was said to be Charles. Why do you assume he wants to be called Charlie? I mean, does this guy look like a relaxed enough dude to be called Charlie? I mean, look at him. No real harm done, though, because Charles gets up and walks back to the hotel just in time to meet up with Joe, who practically barges into his room. Again, his bodyguard ain't bodyguarding. Joe threatens an officer of the law, and the lawman's bodyguard finally comes back in just in time for Joe to get into a shootout with him. Joe wins, technically, but he also just lost real big. This is exactly why Ben shouldn't have let him leave the house in the mood that he was in. The only witness to the shooting was LeDuc, and he is all too happy to say Joe murdered Cole right in front of him. He makes sure to tell Joe that the trial will be about making Marie's past come to light, and Joe flees, if for no other reason than to protect his mother. Sheriff Brady comes out to tell Ben what happened, and Ben finds Joe at Marie's grave. They talk, and he tells Joe and the audience that Marie had begged him to stand trial 20 years ago, when his lawyer told him that there was no need to. Then he convinces Joe to turn himself in. At the jail, when the sheriff says Joe shouldn't have run, Adam defends him. In case there's anyone stumbling across this podcast for the first time and seeing this video before anything else, hi, welcome, please subscribe, and just know that I absolutely love the Joe-Adam relationship, and will beat it to death every chance I get. Also, on a side note, the chair in the sheriff's office looks like a lot of fun. If I'd been on that set that day, I'd have been spinning around on that thing whenever they didn't need me. Ben offers LeDuc the deal that he's been waiting for. He'll go back to New Orleans with him, and if he tells the truth about Joe. You can just tell that however long Cole had been with him, he cares nothing for that man or his death. He's thrilled. He recants his story, and Sheriff Brady lays into him. I really like this guy, and I wish we'd seen more of him than the other bumbling idiot lawmen that we get in the show early on. Ben asks him to keep Joe locked up until he rides out, and Brady responds with, "Why, where you going?" Like a real friend would. Adam and Hoss beg to come with, even if they have to ride far behind them just to make sure everything goes okay, and Ben declines. Okay, there is no way that if this had been one of the boys, Ben would have let them ride off alone with a man who obviously wants to kill him. No way whatsoever. When Adam shakes his father's hand, we see what appears to be words pass between them, but the camera doesn't pick it up. We don't see any of the other characters again but Charles and Ben. From here to the end of the episode is where Lauren Green really shines. He spends that night when they make camp trolling the daylights out of LeDuc, and I freaking love it. Ben's debating skills are unmatched. He never once loses his temper, even after LeDuc gets more and more furious. He tells LeDuc goodnight, and LeDuc says he isn't going to sleep a wink again while Ben's alive. Ben just gets comfy and lets him watch him sleep. The following day, their horses are stolen by Paiutes. LeDuc kills a couple of them, but they're still stranded in the desert with no water and no horses. The nearest way station is 20 miles over the hills. Ben offers to help LeDuc several times, but his pride makes him refuse and shove his rifle in Ben's face. Finally, after they've walked as far as LeDuc can, he raises his gun to kill Ben, but passes out instead, leaving us to wonder if he would have actually done it. When he wakes up, he realizes that Ben carried him the rest of the way to the station. The station manager sits between them and awkwardly listens to their conversation. It's really weird. He hears so much that when Ben asks for some food, the man goes, "For him too?" Because he just heard LeDuc admit that he was going to murder Ben and that there never was a warrant out for Ben's arrest. The letter that Ben should have gotten 20 years ago letting him know that he was cleared had been personally intercepted by LeDuc himself. LeDuc's last words on the subject, along with his confession, are, "You can't kill without hate, and now the hate is gone," as he tears up the phony warrant. Whether or not that is true can be debated. Senseless killings happen every day, and there's no hate involved, strictly speaking. For their particular circumstances, though, the line does fit. I love the lesson on forgiveness that this one has. Ben could have left Charles for dead. He could have gone back on his word when they were vulnerable. He just isn't that kind of man. He is a Cartwright, and they're made different. That is why this show holds up all these years later. I really enjoy this one. A lot of people, myself included, feel that the part about Joe is wrapped up rather quickly in favor of the Ben plot. I ultimately can get over that, though, because this is supposed to be a Ben episode. The Joe parts are just a vehicle for the plot. Mike, of course, does Joe's emotional conflict very well. Hoss and Adam are given less to do dialogue-wise, but they convey their emotions facially very well. Like always. Lloyd Nolan is fantastic as Leduc. You can feel his hatred and self-pity. He even makes you hurt watching him walk. Hal Baylor as Cole will do several supporting roles in the show and does the henchman thing really well. This is one of the shortest episodes in terms of guest stars. Robert Folk as Sheriff Brady, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the better lawmen. He'll play a deputy a few times later on. Joan Staley as the saloon girl Dixie is coming back as a saloon girl again later on too. She fits in the role believably well. Arthur Shields as Dennis is a fun character even though his time is brief. The bickering bromance scenes between Ben and Leduc while they're camping together are really good. I feel like the thing Leduc hated most about Ben was just how hard it is to hate Ben. While Ben never again mentions running for public office, the subject of him being a governor is brought up again a long time from now. Obviously, we would love to see a Cartwright in a political office. That's a no-brainer. In the meantime, it's nice to know the town no longer considers them outsiders. The term high and mighty Cartwrights will never be used again. They are an integral part of the community, and no one will ever doubt that, not ever.